Well, I start my story, and here come the sirens down the street. Do you hear them? Yeah, I hear sirens a lot here, but you just get used to it and don't even pay any attention. Labor Day. Well, I don't know what you did, but I didn't do anything. I don't usually. In fact, I was thinking about Labor Day being a holiday, and I thought, why do we celebrate Labor Day? I've even forgotten what it represents. So don't send me messages telling me what Labor Day is all about. I really don't care anymore. And every holiday, people are saying, where we're going to go, what are we going to do? I'm beyond that point that it just doesn't matter anymore. So I was sitting here browsing through internet, always trying to find something that doesn't apply to me or I don't understand, so I might as well forget it in the first place. But something popped in my head from years ago. Oh, I'll tell them about the trip I took. If I don't tell it now, I'll forget. And it goes waving away into the clouds, and I don't remember what story it was I was going to tell. That's how it is when you're 87 years old. So right now I'm worrying about all that glare in my glasses every time I move my head. How can I get that glare off my glasses? Because I need the light. So much for that. It's always a problem. Yesterday, I was using my little round light. Now, if you look at the video I did yesterday, oh, you're going to spot it immediately. What? Those white circles in her glasses showing up. It's the extra light to focus on me so you can see me better. Instead, you're looking at two little white circles in my glasses instead of whether or not you can see me better. So I'm just going to stay away from those little white lights. They're not doing me much good right now. I don't know how to use them right. So I'm going to tell you about a trip I took once. And I want you to listen to this closely, because if you like to travel, I'm telling you the place to go. It's hard to decide when you want to take a trip. Where can we go that will really like it? Well, this was not my doings. I was visiting my friend in Ohio. She said, I'm going to take you somewhere. You're going to like it. Now, the first time we went was in the summertime, and it may have been around the 4th of July. I'm not sure. We went to a place called Greenfield Village near Dearborn, Michigan. I'd never heard of it. Maybe you have. Maybe you've been there. I'm going to tell you my experience. It's something like I've never seen before. And if you like history, you like to go back 75, 100 years, and you think about setting yourself down in a place where everything is nearly 100 years old, what would that be like? Well, if you go to Greenfield Village in Michigan, you'll find out. It is one of the most delightful places I've ever been. So I'm going to tell you about the first trip. Summertime. It was a festival. I think they have a winter festival and a summer festival, and that's the only two I know about. we got there, and all of the people are dressed in Victorian clothing. I mean, genuine Victorian style clothing. The ladies have the big hat, they've got their parasols, they've got their lace-up boots, their long dresses, coats, suits, whatever they're wearing. The men and the boys are wearing the knicker pants, the knee socks. They've got on the little string ties and their jacket. And you know, they were riding those, let me see what they were called, a penny farthing. I never heard of such a thing. But a penny farthing is a bicycle. Now I'll describe it to you and you'll know what I'm talking about. Those bicycles that have that great big one single wheel and then a little bitty wheel behind it, that is a penny farthing, or it's called a high wheeler. It came out about 1880. Now, here was a man and a young boy riding that big bike along. I thought, oh my gosh, how did they even get on the thing? And they were riding around in their Victorian costume. Now, there was music everywhere. They had a stage in front of one of the big stores. It was kind of like a general store with a great big porch on the front, and that's where your entertainment was. And you can sit on the grass and watch the singers and the music makers. You had your barbershop quartets, you had your duets, you had the old-fashioned music. Over in another area, they're dancing. Couples are dancing. They have dance contests. Oh, gosh. I wanted to climb up on that platform so bad I couldn't stand it. But, of course, I didn't have on a Victorian outfit. Now, we moved along, and there's an area where they've got food, lots of food. They're shucking corn. They've got the fire going. Anything you wanted to eat, they were preparing it. Now, this Victorian village began with Henry Ford. He created this village. His boyhood home was transferred from Ohio, I think, to this 80 acres of ground designated for a small town. There was the old church, Henry Ford's boyhood home, which he was born in 1863, transferred to this land. The Wright brothers' home was there. Now, this is something you probably didn't know, that the plane that they built was built inside their house, this big 2-story house. Part by part was built inside that house. I'm just going to name some of the shops and places and people. Let's see, we had, I'll just name a few of the shops for you. I think there were 2 schoolhouses. The old schools, everything about it was of the period. You could go into this where they made pottery. Made you want to go out and get you a pottery wheel. I mean, fascinating. The building that held glassware, the most beautiful glassware you ever saw. If you love depression glass, if you love cut glass, crystal, it didn't matter what it was. They have it all displayed in this building, and you just, oh my gosh, I can't describe it. There's the tin shop, and there was the shop where the lady was weaving rugs. Now you know what I'm talking about. There's room with these great big looms. You've seen them at parks and places where they're making rugs and placemats and things like that. I remember once, now you're going to think I'm crazy, and I was. A lady owned one of those looms, and that loom took up the space of a whole room. She wanted to sell it. And guess who was going to buy it? What in the world was I going to do with a room-size loom? I got talked out of that one. Thank goodness for that, because in the first place I didn't have a room to put it in. But it showed the weaving room. Let's see what else they had. There was the bookstore, and there were cookbooks from the 1800s. Oh my gosh, you know you'd have to buy one of those. One of them was the Buckeye recipes from 1860. Yeah, I'd want that one. Now, I can't recall some of the famous people that you would recognize their names. Some were teachers, some were poets, that their homes had been transferred or a home built, a replica. One of those people was Thomas Edison's home. Now, everything, the furniture, the kitchen, the women were in the kitchen with the old wood stove, and they were baking and had the fire going under big kettles. You could smell the food as you came into the house. When I went into, I think it was probably the dining room, one of the first rooms I went in, and I looked over, and going up the wall all the way to the ceiling was two wires. Got to the ceiling, went across the ceiling to the center of the room, and there was your electric light bulb. Thomas Edison's home, the first light bulb. That'll take your breath away. And you had all of these people well versed. They could tell you anything you wanted to know about these houses. Well, it being summertime, my friend and I, you do a lot of walking. You have to go prepared to walk. They also have the rides that you can take in the Model T Fords. Oh, they had several of them that they drive around. You had the buggies. Oh my gosh, they had even an old bus. They had the skating rinks. Anything you wanted. Oh, and the train. The train, the locomotive train, goes all the way around the outer edge of the 80 acres. It's a wonderful thing to get on that train, and it's open on the sides. The cars are open on the side for viewing, and it takes you all the way around that property, and you can see everything. Well, I remember my friend and I were walking down the street, and we came to a house that was beautiful. In front of the house was the stone fence. Now, you know the kind of stone fence I mean. It's the kind of stone fences we have in central Kentucky. Limestone fences. And this fence went along the sidewalk and down the sides of this house. It was a Cotswold house. You know what a Cotswold house is. If you've ever been to England, you saw the Cotswold houses. This house was from the 1600s. It had been brought over in the 1700s. Stone by stone was numbered. The house was taken apart, moved to Michigan, and put back together. It was beautiful. Now, the one thing about the house, it had small windows, and we went inside, and I really wasn't comfortable inside because when you've got walls that are 18 inches thick, you don't get very much light coming from the outside. You don't get much sunlight coming through those windows because they're set back 18 inches. But we went to the side yard. It was a courtyard. And they had little tables and chairs set up. And flowers were everywhere. Butterflies and any kind of flower you could name was in bloom. We had our lunch there, and it was a box lunch. Now, it wasn't anything fabulous. They brought you a little square box, and inside that box was another little box and another little box. Your little sandwich was in one box. I can't remember what the other things were that we ordered. It's a simple lunch, but it's so delightful, and the weather was so pretty, and you had butterflies flying around your shoulders. I can't think of anything that would be more delightful than being able to sit out in a courtyard and have a lunch like that. I never forgot that. Never forgot that Cotswold house from the early 1600s. We don't have that sort of thing in America. Now, let's see what else I want to go over. They had the big carousel. Now, this was the summertime, and we went through the old church. They built the church. I think they built the church in about the 1930s. There were a few of the houses that were built in the 20s and 30s, but the rest were the original homes. They had a couple of very nice restaurants, large restaurants, but they didn't look like restaurants we have. One of them, I think, was an Amish restaurant. Big, open, very good, very good. And the food didn't really matter that much, how it tasted. It was just the atmosphere itself. So we did a lot of walking that day. Now that was the summertime visit to Greenfield Village. Better than that was the trip we took at Christmas. I can't even describe it to you so that you can visualize. But you close your eyes and you try to put yourself back to the year of, say, 1910, 1920. Visualize the clothing, the women, all of the people who were involved in entertaining, what have you. The women wore the red velveteen coats. They had the white fur cuffs. They had the hoods. And they would usually stop in the little outdoor. The mind goes blank. But anyway, they would be singing Christmas carols. They had an area where the deer, I'm talking about the deer that you would think the real Santa Claus would have leading his sled. There they were, fenced in. Oh, and the children loved looking at the deer. House by house, group by group, and they were ice skating. I wished so much that I knew how to ice skate. I wanted to be out on that rink so bad. And most of the people in the rink were dressed in Victorian style clothes and coats. My friend and I stood there, and as the T-models came up one by one, people got in the car, and there was a driver for every car. We waited our turn, and we got in the T-model, and we went all the way around Greenfield Village. It was cold, it was snowy, but it didn't matter. The weather was perfect for the look of Christmas. And there was an area, long grassy area in front of the church, that you could walk from the church to the other end to more stores, more shops, more houses, and Christmas carols. Everywhere you went, there was a group singing Christmas carols. So Sandy and I went all the way around the Greenfield Village. We saw it all. Now, you can't imagine, this was one of the first locomotives sitting there near the church, and I stood beside it, and I never realized how big that locomotive was. It was beautiful. They have a locomotive shop where they keep their train in good condition all the time. You can go through all of those buildings, the schools, the churches, the homes, and it's so delightful to go into a kitchen, a working kitchen, with the wood and coal stove, and the ladies in their Victorian dresses, and they're describing what they're cooking. When I was there during the summer, we were taking our walk. This was before we got to the Cotswold house where we had lunch. And we looked down the bank, and there was a group of men playing baseball. Now, the train tracks were on the other side of the baseball diamond. The players were wearing the original baseball uniforms from nearly 100 years ago. Their gloves were the same as many years ago. Their uniforms were the old uniform, and their cleats that they wore were the old ones. It was the most delightful thing to be taken back in time and seeing what it was like 100 years ago. Now, we're sitting on that bank, and we've got a cell phone with us. And I said, give me your cell phone. Gotta make a call. I called my son in Indiana, and I said, you will never guess where I am and what I'm doing. And I described to him the bank where I was sitting and that I was watching a baseball game from a century ago. I said, I told him, I said, you would give your eye teeth to be here now and seeing what I'm seeing. And while we sat there, the train comes along on the other side of the field, and all of those passengers waving. I'm just giving you highlights of Greenfield Village. I'm telling you this. If you're ever wanting to go to someplace special, different, no beach. No, you didn't. There was no beach. It's a place where you feel like you're in the time machine. Remember the TV series? I can't remember who he was. You know, the movie star that played in the time machine. That's how you felt like you have been in a time machine and you have been transferred back 100 years. So keep this in mind when you are sitting around saying, where can we go and really enjoy it? Something that's different. Greenfield Village, Dearborn, Michigan. Now, after we left there, it takes 4 to 5 hours. The tour walking or in a buggy, no matter how you went around the village, you will fulfill 4 to 5 hours and still you haven't covered everything. It's worth every penny that you spend to go there. And between there and the Ford Museum, everybody knows about the Ford Museum, between those two places, we stayed in a hotel that night. And I think the hotel was also owned by Henry Ford, or built and owned. It had the elegance that you would expect to see when the ladies are wearing the long gowns and dresses and the little muffs on their hands and the pretty fur-trimmed hoods. They had the big Christmas tree in a huge lobby, and I've never been in a hotel like that. I can't remember the name of it. Probably could find it on the internet, but I don't know what to look for. So, if you ever get the chance, I want you to go to Greenfield, Michigan, Greenfield Village. Another thing, go on the internet and look it up. There are several sites where you've got someone who is at Greenfield Village, and they are describing their trip throughout the village. They're going from store to store, house to house, the churches, the schools, the cars, the train. You get to see it all. But that's just a sampling of what you will see if you go yourself. Looking at a video is one thing, but being there is like you've been on the time machine. I hope you get the gist of what I'm telling you. I hope when you start planning your trips, you keep it in mind, because I know, without a doubt, if you can go on a day when it's not raining, that's the chance you take. But you can check the schedules for the Christmas festival. It's wonderful. I am so glad I got to be there at Christmas. but it's every bit as good in the summertime when they are, well, you feel like you've stepped into a movie and you're part of the people in the movie, except you aren't dressed properly. Well, I'm going to go to the kitchen. I guess I'll eat a little more chicken salad. I don't want to fool with heating anything up. And we'll see what's on TV tonight. I watched The Magnificent Amberson, I think it was last night. Sad movie. But they've been having some old ones on Turner Classic Movies. I like the very old movies. So anyway, that's probably what I'll be doing. And I hope if you're traveling, get home safe and enjoy your long weekend. Take my word for it. You want to make a trip to Michigan, to Greenfield Village. And let me know if you ever go. I want feedback. So, I've taken up enough time for this one, but I hope it will mean something to you. It does to me. Just remembering it is a good memory. So, I'm going to let you go now, and I got my jewelry on. Now, this is jewelry I made. See my little stone. Everything, these are all glass. So I found some earrings that would go with the necklace. And since I've got on this tacky little stuff, I try to match it up. I don't go any place to wear my jewelry, so I'll just put it on so you can see what I used to make. You have fun. Let me know how you like my story. Thank you.